Cash, thank you for joining us. I know you're under time pressure. First off, I want to go to this thing on what this thing of a nuclear Armageddon. Drudge has got the whole fear porn up there. And the Defense Department came out and Axios got the scoop. There's been absolutely no change whatsoever, according to the Defense Department. And you see right there, MSNBC, I'm having sleepless nights. And Joe Biden's been working on these from the beginning. Biden was on the wrong side of everything about arms control. Everything. He fought Reagan tooth and nail, and Reagan was the best arms control guy we ever had. Kash Patel, your thoughts and analysis since you were chief of staff over at the Pentagon.
Yeah, look, and from my time as chief of staff for DOD, to hear that echo chamber come out of the Washington swamp, that our DOD has not changed its posture based on Vladimir Putin's threats of nuclear war use. And let's remind your audience, Russia has the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons on planet Earth, period. Their number one enemy is us. And to not change the national security posture and to not elevate our military readiness and our intelligence collection and focus it on places like China and Russia is irresponsible. But more importantly, what it continues to show the Biden administration's politicization of the national security apparatus so that they can have their headline and appease their overlords in the radical left media, instead of taking their Q's and A's from hard intel like we did from President Trump. I can tell you this would not have happened in the Trump administration because A, Vladimir Putin would never have dared to make such a crazy statement. And if he did, immediately, having been under President Trump from times like killing Baghdadi to bring home American hostages, he would have acted swiftly to turn our intelligence collection posture against this threat and elevate our preparedness and readiness posture from the Department of Defense.
Isn't this something they're trying to just gin up? Isn't this something they're just trying to gin up? And they got Fauci. They got Fauci and Biden. Biden's doing the Armageddon to the donors. And we got Fauci. Navarro's going to talk about Fauci in a second. Fauci's telling us there's a massive new wave coming. Even Daily Mail's mocking him. He's a massive new wave coming, right? And isn't this just to try to change the conversation in the nation? We got 31 days to go to the biggest midterm election since 1862. Isn't that? Aren't they just trying to change the conversation away from they're getting blown out by the crime, the economy, the invasion of the southern border?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, you're the political genius on this stuff, but you're absolutely right. Look, if it's not January 6th, if it's not Russiagate, if it's not the next scandal, Ukraine impeachment 1, 2, if it's not China virus origins, Fauci, COVID, they're now going to pivot and turn to, you know, the threat of nuclear war and have the mainstream media talk about Joe Biden's 4 decades of ineptitude and how he's failing to lead on the global front. But they'll lie about it and say he's just so ready and so much better prepared than Donald Trump ever was. Anything to deflect away from the fact that he has failed. Like in my home state of Nevada, where I am right now, I've returned to find out that there were stabbings by an illegal immigrant that killed people on Las Vegas Boulevard. Multiple people stabbed to death viciously by an illegal immigrant who walked across the border thanks to Joe Biden's reckless policies. Of course, they don't want to talk about that. And normally that would be headline news. But instead they want to drown you out with fears of another wave of the China virus, keep people subdued and in their homes and away from the polls, because I believe, like you have said, a red wave is coming.
But let me go back to this executive order. A lot of people were freaking out yesterday. What got signed? You're the expert of this since you and Navarro, probably the guys that worked on more executive orders than anybody. What is with this executive order? Is it just about data in the EU, or there's something darker here?
No, I think there's a lot darker here. Look, as the former deputy director of national intelligence under President Trump, we prioritize our collection posture to pivot against our enemies, i.e. China, Russia, Iran, terrorism, and the like, and preventing wars. What this administration has done, and it's spelled out in the executive order, is shockingly bend the knee to Europe, because Europe wants to dictate, for the first time I've ever heard of, how America collects against its enemies. And listen, we don't just collect against our enemies, China in China. China is operating against us all over Europe. Russia is operating against us all over Europe. So the problem I have with this executive order, this is my biggest one, is they have actually put in place a language that allows the Europeans to object and appeal any collection order that the United States engages in based on this agreement. What's even worse, they have not set up the infrastructure behind it, which goes to prove my point that they're using the intelligence apparatus and community to nationalize and politicize our security posture because they want a headline. And as you see, they got it. They got their headline: partial revocation, limiting collection, and that's going to appease the left. But here's the thing I can tell you from collecting all over the world intelligence. We need to do it everywhere, and we do not need to be dictated on how it's done, nor do we need to bend the knee diplomatically to appease a radical left media. It will leave us less secure. It will empower China, and China is winning on this one. They are singing over there because they're going to steal more of our data as a result of this reckless executive order.
Cleta's going to be on here in a little while to talk about this, the Connick situation and the CCP and the data that the True the Vote people called out, 2 months ago, and were mocked and ridiculed by the New York Times just the day before the guy was arrested. So Cleta will be on here for an update on that. Kash, last thing, is there anything here about, because a lot of people are freaking out, there's some language in there about surveillance, taking the restrictions off of surveillance of U.S. citizens. As you read it, is there anything we should be concerned about there?
You know, on the face of it, having done the underlying work and not having access to it right now, there's a possibility of it. But here's what we did in the Trump administration on matters like this. We would set up the infrastructure behind before rolling this thing out. They doing what they always do, get Trump, is the analogy here. They're setting up a conclusory basis, and then they're going to build backwards and reverse engineer to limit our rights and destroy our collection capabilities. That's the scary part. If there was intelligence base to do this, and then they had set up the apparatus in place behind it, then maybe we could have a more level-headed conversation. But they are just looking for the headlines, and I think our security infrastructure is going to be weakened because of it, and our threats against China and Russia, they're going to take advantage of it. And domestically, we'll see what happens. It's very scary if they're going to start limiting domestic intelligence collection as well, just to say, the left has been appeased in the media.
Have you're in Nevada? Nevada's in play. Laxalt's ahead. The governors, the Republican governors ahead. Marchand's ahead. Polls up. The guy remember from 4 to 9 points up. You're there, and I'm glad they're doing an outside arena. I think up near Lake Tahoe. Tell us, what are you going to talk about today, and how do people get access to your best-selling children's book that walks through all of this?
Thanks so much. Yeah. Look, so I'm guessing there's going to be 50,000 plus outside in Minden, Nevada, and I'm going to be talking about what my wheelhouse is: national security, defense, law enforcement, and the politicization by the FBI and the intelligence community to set up a two-tier system of justice to politically target people who are America First policy advocates or MAGA or whatnot, and how they falsely put out disinformation campaigns to label domestic violent extremists the number one threat when they're not, and how they're stripping away the FBI's authority to prosecute cases like child sex crimes and to get a headline. And the Plot Against the King, it went number one thanks to you, Steve. PlotAgainstTheKing.com. Here's a short answer. If you want to know Russiagate in 20 minutes, read the first book, Plot Against the King. If you want to know all about election integrity in the 2020 election, I collaborated with Dinesh D'Souza on Plot Against the King, 2,000 Mules. Donald Trump launched those on Truth Social for us, and he has said, let's get these books in every library in every school across America. Go to PlotAgainstTheKing.com. Grab your copies today. We're selling signed copies. They're flying out of the shelves. Help us change the education system for the better with mission, truth, service, and value.
By the way, Kash, we were out in New Mexico. We had this huge event that David Clemens and the team put on out here, and people were so complimentary about the book. So you're clearly hitting the nail, not just for children, but for also parents that are reading it and grandparents that are reading the kids. They're learning a lot as they're reading it, so great job. Kash, real quickly, how do they get to your podcast, all your writings? What's your social media?
Yeah, so I exist on two places. @Kash on Truth Social is my only social media handle, and I'm at fightwithkash.com if you want to check out my Kash's Corner show. We talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, national security matters, defense intelligence matters. We just aired the live one last night. So fightwithkash.com, and then @Kash on Truth Social.